Barron Trump had never expected his name to dominate the headlines quite like this. The moment Jasmine Crockett stepped onto the stage, the tension was almost visible in the air. Cameras panned across the audience, catching glimpses of curiosity, skepticism, and quiet dread among those who seemed to suspect what was coming. Barron sat near the edge of the crowd, trying to mask his anxiety behind a blank stare. The noise around him faded into an indistinct hum as Jasmine calmly unfolded her papers. Her voice didn't tremble or rise, carried the steady power of someone who knew the weight of the truth she was about to reveal. Those first words were enough to shift the room's energy, drawing every eye and ear toward her and away from him. At first, the details she shared were subtle, seemingly harmless. Contradictions and overlooked moments that hinted at something deeper. Barron's posture stiffened as he realized where she was leading. Whispers spread through the audience like electricity. People leaned forward, hoping for confirmation of rumors they had half believed, but never dared to voice. Jasmine continued, without hesitation, her words cutting past the surface to reveal stories Barron had kept hidden, stories he never imagined would see the light of day. He felt a cold sweat gather at his temples, his breathing growing shallow. The room seemed to shrink around him, the walls pushing closer as her words wrapped tighter around secrets he'd thought were buried. Jasmine didn't shout or insult. She simply read, letting the facts speak louder than any accusation could. Each paragraph felt like a stone dropping into still water, sending ripples of shock through the gathered crowd. Barron's eyes darted toward the exit, measuring the distance as though escape were possible. But his legs felt heavy, pinned by the collective gaze of people who once barely noticed him. As the truth unfurled, some in the audience gasped openly. Others exchanged looks of disbelief. Barron's heart raced so fiercely he wondered if the microphone might catch its pounding. His world, carefully built on silence and distance, began to fracture under the weight of words spoken without fear. In that moment, it wasn't just the secrets themselves that struck him, but the realization of how fragile the barrier had always been. Jasmine's steady tone made each revelation more piercing, refusing to cloak truth in drama. Barron felt exposed in a way he had never imagined possible. Every memory he'd locked away suddenly laid bare before strangers and flashing cameras. The heat rose to his face as he struggled to hold on to composure, his vision blurring at the edges. The hall, once a simple venue, became an arena where truth had come to collect its due. Indifferent to rank, wealth, or last names, Jasmine spoke not to shame him, but to reveal what power had tried to keep hidden. With each sentence, the air grew heavier until it felt too thick to breathe. Barron shifted in his seat, but the pressure didn't lift. The secrets Jasmine revealed were more than gossip. They were reminders of choices made, of moments when silence seemed safer than honesty. Those listening weren't just curious. They were drawn in by the simple courage of confronting what many had whispered about, but few dared to confirm. Barron had prepared for public attention, but not for this raw, unfiltered exposure. His pulse drummed in his ears, drowning out the audience's reactions. Jasmine paused only to turn a page, and the quiet between her words felt as loud as thunder. For a brief second, Barron tried to steady himself, hoping to appear unmoved. But his mind swirled with memories he had tried to keep locked away. Jasmine's revelations weren't wild accusations. They were anchored in dates, messages, and moments that left no room for denial. The walls he'd built crumbled one quiet fact at a time. People who had once defended him now sat in stunned silence, waiting to see how he would respond. The silence pressed down until it felt like a weight on his chest, each breath harder to draw. His composure slipped, his face paling as the shock settled in deeper than embarrassment ever could. The collapse, when it happened, wasn't theatrical. His shoulders slumped, his gaze dropped to the floor, and the fight to remain untouched drained. From his posture, cameras flashed, as if trying to capture the exact moment truth broke through. Jasmine did not pause to savor the sight. She simply continued, her words steady, focused on what needed to be said, rather than who was listening. The audience watched a young man struggle under the burden of secrets he could no longer deny, and in that shared moment they saw the cost of silence. Barron, once a distant figure shielded by his father's name, became painfully human, caught between past choices and present consequences. Jasmine's voice never trembled. It stayed measured and unwavering, offering facts rather than condemnation. That choice made her words land even harder, because they felt less like an attack and more like an unavoidable reckoning. Some in the crowd looked away, uncomfortable, witnessing the rawness of a public unraveling, while others leaned closer, drawn to the gravity of the truth being spoken aloud. Barron felt heat crawl up his neck, a mix of shame, fear, and disbelief that the story he had controlled so carefully could be taken apart so easily. Each detail she revealed felt like another lock breaking on a door he had hoped no one would open. The final words Jasmine spoke hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. Barron barely registered them, lost in the echo of his own heartbeat pounding painfully fast. Around him, the audience was silent, caught between shock and the weight of witnessing something so personal. For Barron, the collapse was not just physical. It was the crumbling of the carefully crafted identity that had protected him from scrutiny. His vision dimmed at the edges, a black fog creeping in as he struggled to stay upright. In that last moment of clarity, he realized that truth, once spoken aloud, could not be unheard. And then, unable to withstand the pressure any longer, his body gave way. Gasps swept through the audience as Barron's collapse unfolded in real time. The cameras, almost instinctively, followed his slow descent, capturing the moment when posture failed and truth finally overwhelmed pretense. For a few seconds, the room seemed frozen between disbelief and concern. Jasmine did not shout for attention or pause in triumph. Instead, she set the papers aside, her eyes reflecting something close to quiet regret rather than victory. This wasn't the moment she had wanted, not someone's public fall, but a reckoning built on facts that had been hidden for too long. And while Barron struggled to steady himself, it was clear that the story she revealed could no longer be contained or denied. The silence that followed felt different from the earlier tension. It was softer, almost mournful, as people realized the depth of what had just happened. Security and aides rushed forward, but the damage was already done. Not just to Barron's image, but to the illusion that had protected him for years. The camera lights kept rolling, capturing every flinch, every grimace, every half-formed offense that never made it past his lips. Viewers at home watched in stunned fascination, some feeling sympathy, others shaking their heads. Jasmine remained, standing, her expression unchanged, her purpose still focused on the truth she had brought to light rather than the spectacle it had become. Outside the venue, the effect was instant and chaotic. Clips spread across social media within minutes, and hashtags trended worldwide. Some people condemned Jasmine, accusing her of cruelty. Others praised her for bravery. Commentators debated whether Barron's collapse was purely physical or a sign of something deeper, the crushing realization that secrets could not remain hidden forever. But inside the room it was quieter now. Barron, supported by aides, avoided meeting anyone's gaze, his face pale and distant. Jasmine offered no apology yet. There was no gloating in her expression. Instead, there was an unspoken acknowledgement of the human cost of the truth she had carried. It became clear to everyone present that what had shaken Barron wasn't just exposure. It was the sudden stripping away of a carefully constructed narrative. Jasmine had not relied on rumor or anger, but on documents, timelines, and words that had come from his own past. The undeniable weight of evidence left no space for denial or clever deflection. The power that had shielded him for so long faltered when confronted with facts so plain they needed no embellishment. Those watching realized that even in a world of spin and spectacle, truth, when presented without fear, could still break through. And in that moment, it had. As Barron was guided away, the audience slowly shifted its attention back to Jasmine. Her voice remained calm, as if she had prepared for this reaction but refused to let it define her message. The collapse was not her goal. It was a consequence of hidden truths finally surfacing. She spoke again, briefly, reminding those listening that secrets have consequences not only for the powerful, but for everyone who is asked to remain silent. The final words she offered were neither a warning nor a threat, but a statement of principle that truth matters. Even when it's uncomfortable, even when it costs someone their composure or reputation, in the hours and days that followed, the narrative splintered into countless opinions. Some condemned Jasmine as ruthless. Others praised her as a necessary force against privilege. Barron's collapse was replayed endlessly, debated in talk shows and dissected in comment threads. But beyond the noise, what endured was the clarity of what had been revealed. Even those who sympathized with Barron struggled to deny the facts Jasmine had shared. The street,